Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome into another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. I know we've got a lot of familiar faces in the crowd, but like our McDonald's school, some new folks today too. So if you are new to us, joining live on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're tuning in from, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, everything we do goes to our YouTube channel, so you can check out this program in 3 weeks or 3 years or anytime you want to tune in and learn more about epic lemurs, as I hope you're all excited to do today. I want to say a big thank you to the friends at the Toronto Zoo. They have been partnering with us for years on all manner of amazing science stories. Again, that YouTube channel has everything we've ever done with them, so lots to explore and discover there. Now, before I dive in with our topic du jour, which I've hinted at a few times, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz, this is the game pin. So feel free to pull that up in a separate tab in your computer. A little fun for some bragging rights in the middle of the show. But without further ado, I'm going to welcome in Mary Ellen at the Toronto Zoo, educator extraordinaire, to give us a deep dive on World Lemur Day. We are going to learn more about these incredible creatures, their conservation, and more, including some special guest speakers today. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today, Mary Ellen, and welcome back.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Toronto Zoo. My name is Mary Ellen, and I'm so excited to be back with Jesse here and everyone at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants to have another great school year of all of our live broadcasts. So stay tuned for the next several months until June. We'll be with you live every single month, exploring the different regions of the zoo and learning about all the ways that you can help in animal conservation. So today, very excitingly, we are going to be learning about some really incredible lemurs that we have here at the Toronto Zoo. And I've got not only a special guest with me here today, but of course, our lemurs who live with us here at the Toronto Zoo. Before we jump in and get started, though, I am going to have Jesse bring up our land acknowledgement here for me, and we will get started. So we would just like to acknowledge that the land that we are standing on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We would also like to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. Thank you so much, Jesse. So welcome, everybody. You might be able to tell where we are. If you've come to the zoo before, I'll do kind of a quick little 360 here. We are actually standing in our African rainforest pavilion. So this is where our lemurs live. It might give you a clue to where lemurs are sort of from in the world. We're going to learn all about that in just a moment here. But we're standing in our pavilion, and we are going to learn all about these amazing creatures on World Lemur Day. What a perfect day to do a broadcast like this. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my friend and co-host here today. We have Travis. He is the executive director of Planet Madagascar, and he is going to be teaching us a little bit about these amazing creatures we have here. So without further ado, let me flip our camera around to the true star of today's show. And there we go. Travis, you can say hi.
Hi, everyone. Hey, Jesse, and hey, all the folks from Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Well, we're here at the Toronto Zoo. The Toronto Zoo is a partner of my organization, Planet Madagascar. Our mission is to build sustainable forest communities, and we do that in partnership with the Toronto Zoo, and we're trying to protect critically endangered lemurs. Lemurs are the most endangered groups of animals in the world, but not everyone knows a lot about them, so we're going to teach you a bit about them today. For example, lemurs are a type of primate. These are the wet-nosed primates. They're related to things like galagos and lorises. So their noses are wet, a lot like a dog or a cat. Where your nose is dry, you're also a primate, and you're one of the apes. So humans, great apes, lesser apes, and monkeys are all part of the dry-nosed primates, while here the lemurs are part of the wet-nosed primates. Now, lemurs themselves are also interesting. There's over 100 species of lemurs in Madagascar, about 114 now, including the ring-tailed lemur that you see here. Ring-tailed lemurs are most famous probably because of the movie Madagascar. You might have seen King Julian in that movie. It's a bit of a misnomer because there would never be a King Julian in a ring-tailed lemur group. So you see, ring-tailed lemurs are female dominant, and so it would always be a Queen Juliet. And she wouldn't be silly like King Julian. She would be smart. She would dictate the group's movements, and she would show how to get food, and she would manage the group in a much different way than you see in the movie. Lemurs are fascinating because they're only found in Madagascar. I mentioned there's over 100 species, including tiny little mouse lemurs, all the way to the Indri, which is, to me, it looks like a 4-year-old wearing a panda suit. So if you ever get a chance to see it, just look it up online. Indri, Indri. In fact, Jesse's been to Madagascar and he's seen these lemurs himself. The ring-tailed lemurs have this strange features, as do some other lemurs, where they actually have a forked or sort of double tongue. And this tongue allows them to clean off the bottom of their incisors. The bottom of their incisors close up a lot like my fingers are and stick out straight like this, and that's called a tooth comb. They use this tooth comb to groom their fur. That's why they look all so fuzzy and fluffy all the time. And if they want to interact with each other, they'll sometimes groom as a way of social cohesion. It's kind of like hugging in humans. They keep each other feeling better, and they also have a secondary benefit of getting rid of parasites like ticks and such. And so the tongue cleans off that tooth comb. Ring-tailed lemurs are also unusual. One of the only primates that are striped. The ring tail has 13 segments on it. It's always 13 unless the tail is broken. They use this for signaling visually so they can see each other as they're moving, but they also use their tail for communicating amongst each other. Inside their wrists, they have glands. These glands produce a scent. They use that scent to mark parts of their territory or their home range, and they'll kind of just notch a tree when they do that, but they'll also curl their tail between their legs and rub the scent on it, and then they'll throw the scent with the tail at each other when they're having like a fight or something. So instead of physically fighting, they'll have these what's called stink fights. Now, sometimes boys like girls, and so they'll stink flirt as well, and that's how they communicate with each other. And besides that, so that's fascinating. They have this ring tail for visual communication. They have these glands they can use to communicate their home range, and they can communicate their relationships to each other. But they're also one of the most vocal primates. In fact, they're the most vocal primate outside of humans. They make over 40 different distinct calls, including chuffs, rattles, barks, purrs. They've invented words to describe some of the sounds they make. So they're a very vocal primate that is quite surprising. You'd think other things, like maybe monkeys, would be more vocal, but no, it's these lemurs. These ones in particular are fascinating as well because of all the lemurs, most are truly arboreal, but ring-tailed lemurs will spend a lot of time on the ground. So they can be arboreal, they can spend time in the trees, they're very good at jumping, but they also are terrestrial, meaning they will go down to the ground and they will spend lots of their time on the ground as they move around through open patches of forest or savanna in between patches of forest. A lot of people think that you can just find ring-tailed lemurs anywhere in Madagascar, but you can't. They're actually restricted to the southern part of Madagascar. I mentioned before over 100 species. Well, if you're to travel around Madagascar, there's these river systems. And between each river system, you usually have one of each type of lemur. You'll have one what we call true lemurs. That's these like ring-tailed lemurs, brown lemurs, mongoose lemurs, collar lemurs. These are all types of true lemurs. You'll have one or two of those. Then you'll have a type of shafaka. These are your leaping lemurs that eat leaves. You'll have a nocturnal version of that lemur called an avahi. This is a woolly lemur. You'll also see tiny little mouse lemurs. They're usually one or two in each zone. And then there's several other different species like fat-tailed dwarf lemurs and fork-marked lemurs and the really incredible eye. If you get a chance to see one of those are just amazing. I've been there lots and I have not seen them. And yeah, so that's a lot of what we have about Madagascar. There are people in Madagascar. We kind of forget that when we think about places like Madagascar, we think of the wildlife. We have to remember there's nearly 30 million people that make their home with lemurs. And if you start extending outside of Madagascar, few people realize this, but 5 billion people on this planet live within 100 kilometers of a primate. So to us in North America, Europe, and sort of the global north, we kind of see them as very exotic animals. But for most of the world, it's part of their day-to-day lives. So it's sometimes important for us to remember that they're part of the lives of most people on the planet. And it's the same in Madagascar. Now, unfortunately, Madagascar, lemurs are the most endangered group of animals that we measure in the entire planet. And that's a little bit to do with the interactions with people and habitat and lemurs. Fortunately, people in Madagascar are very engaged. They're really excited about conservation, and they're working hard with our organization and many other organizations to bring these species from extinction back into a nice sustainable status.
Awesome.
I was going to say, one thing I want to harp on, because we've been highlighting Planet Madagascar's website a bunch for our audience. Could you speak a little bit to what you guys do as an organization in Madagascar? Because it's a really fascinating story for our kids, Travis.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, we're quite lucky. We started as a very small organization where myself and my Malagasy colleague, Mommy, him and I were talking about what could we do to help conservation in Madagascar. And with a little bit of funding, we started a small project where we would monitor lemurs and protect a small area from fire. That has exploded, where we now manage almost 15,000 hectares of habitat for lemurs, including 16.5 kilometers of fire breaks, all visible from space. We put 200,000 trees back into the ground. This is lemur habitat that we're regrowing. You can even see those as they're growing up. We work with 3 core communities. We do sanitation projects, health projects, women's health projects. We built a school in one of the 3 communities. We help support teachers. We have a school in Alaska that helps do projects with the kids in these schools. We've run a beekeeping project. We've run a sustainable agriculture project. We helped start a women's cooperative. And it sounds like a lot of stuff that Planet Madagascar is doing, but you got to remember, these are people in a community. They're the ones doing all of this work. They're the ones who've engaged with us, who've told us what they want to see the future of their community and their children's future. And they told us they want the future to be with forests and lemurs. And so they do all sorts of projects. We even have a project where we're looking at pathogens in lemurs, dogs, cattle, chickens, and ducks and sheep and people to see if the pathogens are moving amongst them, because people are getting sick and we want to make sure we can help solve that for people. But sometimes lemurs are getting sick too. So maybe that means people need to wash their hands. Maybe that means that we have to not eat in areas that there's lemurs, for example. We don't know, because we're just doing that research now. So lots of great projects. We're looking to expand, especially with our fire management and our community-based projects. And hopefully, eventually, depending on funding, we would expand to include the park, and working with several other organizations doing the same thing. Great question, Jesse. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Travis. And honestly, we get the privilege here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants of working with a lot of really spectacular community conservation groups around the world. I've had the chance to see Travis and Planet Madagascar's work firsthand, and it really is at the upper echelon of all you can do to help save wildlife, bring the community in, sort of create a movement around saving wildlife in a space. And so Madagascar is a very, very special part of the world. I really encourage our classes. Check out their website, see what you can do. There's lots of ways at Planet Madagascar that you can support their work, learn more about lemurs, and do great things to help these incredible, incredible creatures. So, Travis, that was spectacular, man. And before we dive into Kahoot and questions and everything else, is there any element that we want to talk about with the zoo and the lemurs there, Mary Ellen, as well?
Definitely, for sure. So learning about all the lemurs that we have in Madagascar and out in the wild, it is a really cool experience to, be learning about them with a conspiracy or a group of lemurs here behind us. So obviously these are the lemurs who live here at the Toronto Zoo. We actually have 2 groups of lemurs. And just like Travis was saying, they do have like a queen of their group. So we have a Lucy and a Lily group here at the zoo. And I believe that this is our Lucy group out. So here with us today, we have Lucy, Leroy, Joshua Tree, Benjamin, and Willow. So those are the lemurs we're seeing right now. Now, if you've been to the Toronto Zoo before, you might notice that we have some lemurs here. And we also have another group of lemurs that sometimes live in their summer home, as we call it, down in our Indo-Malaya pavilion. So we like to try and have both groups out for everyone to see and learn about as much as we possibly can, which is really cool. And if we take a sweep just even around their exhibit here, Travis was talking about how they like to live up in the trees. So you can see we have these massive trees here. Which do we think? What do the audience think? Do we think this is a real tree or a human-made tree? What are we thinking?
We've got a few classes live on StreamYard and a whole bevy of people on YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to chime in with your thoughts, real tree, artificial tree, what do we think? And maybe why? Let's see. Oh, we're getting... So fake tree, fake tree, fake tree. Everyone thinks it's a fake tree that we're getting. Are they correct, or is it a real one? What do we think?
They are correct. Although I would love to see a real tree in here, there are some real clippings of trees that we see. But realistically, a real tree wouldn't really have its purpose in living here, and it would maybe outgrow the space too quickly, or potentially die, and we might have to replace it, which would be a little bit difficult to do. But our amazing exhibit design team have created this tree here for us, and they make sure it's nice and sturdy so that we can also hang other enrichments that we see off of it. Now, if you've attended a video with Jesse and I before, you'll know that I love to shout out other departments in our zoo. Obviously, we have our amazing keeper and care team staff here who take care of these fantastic animals and the 3,000 animals that call the Toronto Zoo their home. But also looking around right now, I can see several other departments at work. For example, exhibit design with all these elements that you see. There's even a reused fire hose in here to be more eco-friendly, to make a strong, sturdy structure for them. We see rope and vines going through the exhibit so they can have their natural climbing. I can also see that there is some water on the floor, which means there's plumbing in here. So if you didn't know, we do have an entire team of plumbing and maintenance staff here who help out. There's heating in this building because, you know, the lemurs and other animals in here are used to a little bit warmer environment than we maybe have here in Toronto at this time of year. And there's also lots of snacks and food. So I don't know if you noticed when Travis was talking, but our lemurs were all kind of congregating around this area here, and they were munching on some snacks that one of their keepers put out for them. So not only do we have a lovely decorated little enrichment box there that says Planet Madagascar, but we also have a little pumpkin inside, Halloween theme for them here. And then I see some lettuce. They also have some corn. They had some carrots, some celery. And I think there's also a piece of broccoli left down there. So it turns out not just, you know, human kids don't like their broccoli, but lemurs also maybe don't favor it as much either. Now, something really interesting, if you come to the zoo to visit our lemurs here, you might notice, I'm trying to look back and forth here, but I actually don't see their other friends in here just yet. They might be on the other side of their exhibit, but in this habitat, there's not only our group of lemurs, but we also have 2 Aldabra tortoises and also a crowned crane. So if you ever come into this pavilion and you hear what sounds like a car alarm, that would be Huckleberry, the crowned crane. He's a pretty cool bird, likes to stand nice and tall, got a really nice big afro of feathers. It's pretty cool. But they also share this exhibit, and people always ask, you know, how do they get along with each other? And Travis was mentioning earlier a little bit about the stinky fights or the stinky flirts that happen. And occasionally, you know, you'll see the lemurs try and, you know, interact with the other 2 species living in here, kind of checking them out. And occasionally they have sat on the tortoises' backs as well, which is a little bit interesting of a relationship for them. It's not a very fast mode of transportation for them, though. It's more for kind of leisurely exhibits. But yeah, if we want, we'll jump into our Kahoot here, and then we can take some questions from the audience.
Fantastic. We got a lot of folks ready for questions. So honestly, YouTubers, Facebook classes, please do start sharing your questions in the chat. Live groups, we're going to be coming to you all in person momentarily. So stay tuned for that and put your thinking caps on. We're going to begin with our Kahoot. So for those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is Travis, Mary Ellen, and I's everlasting respect. So please do chime in, get involved in that little game pin. And if you want to just yell out the answer in your class or home, that's totally fine as well. But Mary Ellen, Travis, now you covered these as topics, but if you want to give us little hints with a few seconds to go, you're welcome to chime in and give us a little extra boost for anyone who might be having trouble with the answers. We are going to get underway, and then McDonough School. So we're going to head to Maryland first. If you guys want to come in first for a question, get ready, and we'll go live with that in just a few. But here we go. All right. Question 1. 3, 2, 1. All right. How many species of lemurs are there on Earth? Travis said this very quickly, if you were listening. Is it 4, 20, 50, or roughly 100? What do we think? Get those answers in. Travis, any thoughts? Any hints for people?
Yeah, it's always more than people think.
In fact, if anyone's ever done a Kahoot with me before, just generally aim high for our audience that's been here before. Wow, there's like 60 of you already. That's amazing. Thanks so many of you for participating. 5 more seconds to go. So our answer is done. Let's see. It is. Yes, Moji, you got this right. Roughly 100. So it's, do we have an exact figure, Travis? Is it 110?
Oh, it changes, but it's roughly 114 at the moment, but there's still debate.
Very, very cool. All right, let's see what that does to our leaderboard. Noble Crane, perhaps the crane in the enclosure, is in the lead as we go to a true or false. So we talked about this with regards to the movie Madagascar. King Julian, or maybe not. lemurs are female dominant. The females are in charge. True or false? What do we think? You gave her a different name, I think, other than King Julian. What should it have been?
Exactly. That's what you'll have to remember.
Yeah. 16. Oh my
You need
gosh.
to know your Shakespeare.
Almost any. Yeah. So female dominant lemurs. So, like, out of curiosity, just for our audience's sake, if like a baby female is born, like a baby girl lemur is born, is she suddenly like in the lead over all the boys, or how does it work?
That's a very good question. Lemurs are not, they don't stay in their same groups all the time. And so the level of dominance isn't like this strict hierarchy like you would see in other animals. But what happens is as those female lemurs grow up, they grow up to be larger than males. And so through that, they just have control just by being physically bigger.
Interesting. Thank you very much. All right. Adorable alpaca takes our lead as we go to question 3. 2 more to go, folks. All right. What are some threats facing lemurs? Is the hunting and pet trade a threat facing them? Climate change? Or perhaps, nudge, nudge, all of the above? You talked about a few of these threats. If you want to highlight anything that are threats to lemurs while we're waiting for the quiet answers to come in.
Yeah, the thing that's affecting lemurs and makes them the most endangered animal group in the world is the same thing it's resulting in the global biodiversity crisis. And it has a lot to do with how humans want to interact with the habitats that we live with. And that includes changing them, modifying them, and taking resources from them, hunting, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of things we do, and lemurs are also affected by the same stuff.
I always like when we get to highlight habitat loss because I think it's a really easy way for kids to understand. If you didn't have a home, if you couldn't go home at night and you had to wander around, it would be much more challenging for you to survive. And animals need homes too. They may not be a brick and mortar structure, but whether it's a forest or an ocean or a coral reef, these things are really, really important because if you don't have that, you really don't have anything else. So as we impact these environments, we're putting things like lemurs at risk. And I'm really glad that a lot of you got all of the above with that, but particularly our habitat loss element. Dr. Leopard has our lead as we go into our final question for all the marbles. And then McDonough School, we're coming to you first. What can we do to protect lemurs? Can you tell your friends and family what you learned? Can you choose sustainably sourced products? Can you do your part to help fight climate change? Or, again, perhaps all of the above. Now, at Planet Madagascar, you deal with a lot of these, and you highlighted some of the things your organization does. You also sell some really cool things that are from the local community in Madagascar. Can you speak to those as we take our answer in?
Yeah, when we do our events, we bring in some raffia products. We have these cool silk ornaments. Those you can find. These are Christmas ornaments of lemurs. You can find those on our website. We're out of T-shirts, but often we have those. And then we have some paintings that were drawn by local artists that we're selling. And then, of course, you can always adopt a lemur, and you can always adopt a hectare of forest, which is a great way to support lemur conservation in Madagascar.
I will say, as we see our leaderboard here for our Kahoot, conservation funding in Madagascar goes a really, really long way. So $10 for Malagasy people for lemurs goes a lot further than it does pretty much anywhere else in the world. So if you do find yourself wanting to support some cool conservation efforts, Planet Madagascar is your place to go. Dr. Leopard is our winner. If you are any of these folks, let us know who you are in the chat. Thanks for playing along, everybody. And we're going to head to our Owen Mills School on McDonough School. If you guys want to come on up and lead us off with a question, you are welcome in, and nice to have you in the broadcast.
McDonough, hey, everybody.
Hey.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Any questions? Come on up.
How do we unmute?
You're good. You are muted.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, you're muted there.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. How many babies or kids can lemurs have?
Great question.
That is a really good question. Lemurs are actually a bit unusual. They have multiple sets of mammary glands, which is what produces milk for babies, for mammals. And lemurs often will have twins, and that's actually very unusual in primates. We see this in callitrichids; those are your marmosets and tamarins. We see it in humans, and we see it in lemurs. So it's an unusual characteristic, but they do have mostly one. It's one baby, often once a year, but often they will have twins at the same time.
Cool question to lead us off. Thanks, guys. All right, Ms. Archer Seaman, we're going to head to our Miami crew. Come on in and take us away. There's so many of you. Hey, guys.
Can you hear me? If they are mammals, do they always like have fur like when they're newborns?
Ooh. That is also a great question. Yes, they have fur and hair, a lot like us, because we don't think we're very furry, but we actually have the same amount of hair follicles per centimeter or per square inch as a chimpanzee. It's just lighter and thinner. And so, yes, just like us, just like other mammals, they are born furry or hairy.
Cool question, guys. We've actually never had that for our primate class before, so thank you guys very much for that. We're going to head to Oxnard, California, Miss Baraja's class. We're coming to you. YouTubers, Facebook groups, send your questions in. We'll take some from them, and then we'll do a whole other round of questions with all our live groups. But hey, Miss Barajas, welcome in.
Hola, mijo.
All right, yeah, come on up. Ask a question, guys.
How many lemurs are there in the world?
Ooh, toughy.
Ooh, good question. So there's over 100 species, but the actual numbers of lemurs depends on the species. We have some species where there's as few as 20 or 30 lemurs left for the entire species. In other species, we have several hundred and sometimes thousands of lemurs. For example, the mouse lemurs, they're really small. And so there's many of those, thousands and thousands. I couldn't even tell you how many. We still don't know. In fact, they're still discovering new species, and they're still discovering new habitats that have lemurs in Madagascar.
Well, and you mentioned something too, and I always like to harp on this with the eye, which is a specific and really cool kind of lemur. Like some lemurs are really hard to find. You can go for years to Madagascar like you have and never see an eye. I've heard this from other researchers before. So it's not like they're all there just waiting for you to witness them. They're reclusive animals. Some of them only come out at night. So it can be a real challenge to get numbers like that. Right, Travis?
Totally. And in fact, you remember you came with us on a big expedition and looking for lemurs. It's not easy. And we've recently discovered eyes occupy a lot more of Madagascar than we ever thought because, like you said, they're really hard to find.
Yeah. One of the coolest bits of science, this is just tangential to today's topic, but we've had researchers come on who literally go and take leeches out of the forest, and they find that the leeches have sucked the blood of eyes, and that's how they find out how many eyes there are, which is super cool, super neat. It's a tactic that's being used for all sorts of species around the globe. So kind of a weird bit of science for you kids, but I really like that we got to cover that. Thanks, guys. All right, we've got a question from Cookie. Cookie comes to a lot of our broadcasts, Travis, and they want to know what's the weirdest thing you've ever learned about lemurs. No pressure.
Oh, the weirdest thing I've ever learned about lemurs. Oh my goodness. Well, last year I actually didn't know that ring-tailed lemurs had 13 rings on, and I thought that was pretty strange that they're always the same. What I find interesting and I always forget, but when I come, their ears are mobile. And they're not fixed like our ears, so they're mobile just like a deer. And so that's also a fascinating thing. Oh man, there's so many interesting things. We keep seeing new stuff all the time. Every time I see lemurs, I learn some crazy new thing about them.
Very cool. Thanks, Cookie, for the question. Another one coming online is, if this tree is meant to mimic trees in the Malagasy environment, they noticed that the branches are really high up off the ground. How do the lemurs get up into the trees? Are they really good climbers? Can you speak to their climbing ability just generally?
Yeah, so it's a great question. In fact, almost all primates have adaptations for climbing, including humans. Our rotating shoulder allows us to climb and hang and swing. That's why we sometimes call them monkey bars. And so they have grasping hands. They have very powerful femurs that allow them to leap. And they have kind of a sort of a broad, sticky pad on their fingers that allow them to clamper on and grab onto a tree branch. And so they're very good at bouncing up into a tree, moving across different substrates, big and small, and they can handle themselves just like a squirrel could, but without relying on claws, more on dexterity and grip.
Yeah, and just for an example here, frequently in this exhibit, you'll see them go from this rock down here, and they will just straight jump up into the tree. And there's lots of different, they're hard to see on camera, but there are lots of different vines or ropes here that lead to and from each tree. But it's not uncommon to see them jump from this rock straight up into the tree.
So I want to harp on this for a second because they are excellent climbers and that jump's pretty cool. But lemurs can do really, really epic leaps between trees. Can you tell us a little bit about how far some of the species can leap? As it's unbelievable.
Yeah, so the Shafaka species, or the group of species that are part of the Indrias, these are Shafakas and Indries, they have what's called vertical clinging and leaping. And they have really big hind limbs with really powerful legs, and they leap into the air, transition like a kangaroo practicing kung fu, twist, and will grab onto a tree. And as they grab, they actually ricochet off that tree and will bounce off it again. They can make between 8 and 10 meter jumps. So that's well over 20, almost 30 feet that they can jump from one tree to another. Makes them the furthest jumping animal in the world.
It's one of the most incredible things you can ever witness in nature, both live, like Travis really has, and online. There are many videos. BBC's done some incredible documentaries featuring some of those lemur leaps. I really encourage you to check them out because they're really, really special. And I also want to highlight that that's the first time in 1,500 broadcasts that kangaroo kung fu has ever been referenced as a phrase, and I think it ought to feature in more programs going forward. So thank you for that, Travis. McDonough School, we're going to head back to Owings Mills. Come on up and share another question. You're good to go, guys.
What does their usual diet consist of?
Ooh, this is a very good question. It actually is a bit tough to answer because every group of lemurs are sort of classified based on the types of diet that they have. So we have types of lemurs that specialize in eating leaves, but of course they'll eat other things like fruits and flowers. You have some lemurs that are specialized in eating gum, like the sap from trees. We have some that are specialists on just bamboo, and they eat the cyanide-rich portions of bamboo. There's frugivorous lemurs that focus mostly on fruits. And then you have ringtail lemurs like we see here, which are mostly frugivorous, but they will also eat a lot of other things because they go to ground and they'll scavenge on stuff. And then there's omnivores like mouse lemurs, which will eat anything. They'll eat lizards and birds' eggs and all sorts of stuff, including fruits and flowers and leaves.
We had a great follow-up on this. So that's what lemurs eat. Is there anything that eat lemurs? Do they have to worry about big cats like lions or leopards or anything else? Or what do they have there in Madagascar?
Yeah, just like a lot of animals, they are part of an ecosystem. And as part of that ecosystem, sometimes they're the predator. They eat other animals, and sometimes they're the prey. And in the case of lemurs, young lemurs are very susceptible to being preyed on by snakes. There's a Malagasy boa constrictor. So that's one predator. There's also there's a type of a hawk, a harrier hawk that specializes. They have special hinged joints so they can twist around on a tree and scoop out a lemur. And there's also a very fascinating mammal only found in Madagascar that hunts lemurs specifically. It's called the fossa. It's kind of like mixing a cat and a mongoose lemur together, and they exist in Madagascar, and they're a major or main predator of many lemur species.
Yeah, very, very cool. Thanks, Travis. And I really encourage our class to look up the fossa, one of the most sinister, cool-looking predators on planet Earth. I love them. I did not see one when I was live. I don't know. Have you ever seen one live, Travis?
I have spent 17 years in Madagascar, and I've seen one.
Wow, there you go. So there you go. Any pictures we have, if you get a chance to check them out, they're very neat because they are very hard to find, like we talked about a little earlier. We're going to head back to Coral Reef Elementary. Miss Archercina, Miss Barbados class, come on back in. Take us away. Hey, guys. Hi.
How long is their lifespan?
Ooh, how long do they live?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In the wild, they don't live as long as they do in captivity. And again, it depends on which species. You have very small species that live maybe 2, 3, 4 years in the wild and upwards of 8 years, but they've been known to live to 12. We've seen, I believe there's been some shafakas that have gone into their 30s in captivities. I think some eye-eyes have done the same. I think ringtail lemurs can even get into their 20s or late 20s at the very least. I'm not sure what our oldest one is here, but they can be quite old, a lot older than you think, much older than, say, our raccoons. In North America, our raccoons sometimes only live about 24 months.
So Lucy and Lily here at the zoo, they're two of our oldest girls that we have, and they're estimated to be born in May of 2010. So we don't have their exact birthday. And then the rest of our group is between 2011 and 2014. So I would say they're kind of middle-aged here at the zoo.
So, Mary Ellen, I actually wanted to go to you for a second because, Travis, you led that off by saying that they tend to live longer in captivity, and that's counter to what a lot of people might think. And so, Mary Ellen, if you want to speak to the accreditation process of zoos and maybe why they live longer in captivity, that would be fantastic.
Definitely. So it's something we like to highlight in all of our videos that we do here with Jesse and Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, is that a lot of species can do better in a captive setting just because of the ability to have, the nutrition provided for them. So Travis was talking about when they're younger, they're extremely vulnerable to predators. But here in this exhibit, in this habitat here, there's no real predator issue for them. So they're a little bit safer that way. And they're able to mature into their full adult form. And then also here, although we don't like just to hand them the food all the time, they do have to sometimes do puzzles or different enrichments to mimic their natural behaviors. Their food does get spread out more throughout their exhibit. We did kind of cluster it here today for the purpose of our video. This is their lunchtime snack. But there's enrichments all over their exhibit that they have to go to get their food, to find and forage for it. And then also one of the biggest maybe advantages of being in a captive population is their access to healthcare. So we have an amazing team of work alongside our nutritionists, our keepers, and anytime any of the animals are acting a little bit maybe off from their normal, they're not eating, they're dropping weight, they have a cut or a scratch, they're limping, anything like that, the keepers are able to have vets come out. They work in tandem. And if it's something that they can maybe work with the animal while they're upright, they work on a lot of training with them so that going to the doctor doesn't have to be stressful for them. They can do target training. A lot of our big cats and other large mammals and species can do voluntary blood draws. It seems like a simple thing for a human. You just go, you give them your arm. But to tell a tiger that, it's a little bit harder. So we can have them actually push into the fence at us. They can offer us their tail. And we're able to, either inject or take blood from them while they're still awake. And that way it's not stressful for them. And then we get the most accurate readings of their blood or whatever samples we're getting from them. And so we're able to give them any medicine or kind of adjust their diet to help them. So we have a really incredible team here. And being an accredited facility, which means we are accredited by AZA, this means that we are held to the highest standard of care. So the Toronto Zoo actually just went through our accreditation process renewal this past year. And we've been successfully renewed, which is fantastic. And we have that accreditation with us for the next couple of years. And essentially what that means is that other sources from outside the zoo came in, evaluated every aspect, not just the animals, but our rides, our restaurants, our educational programs, why we do videos like this. What is their purpose? What is their point? And how does it actually relate back to conservation? And when you have all those components together with a high level of animal care, you can receive an accreditation, which is just an amazing way to know that the zoos that you're supporting are actually going and helping animal conservation.
That's a beautiful answer and so much detail. And I want to stress all our classes registered today. You guys are near accredited zoos. So when you go to a zoo or aquarium, look for that accreditation. And it means that they take care of the animals in the best possible way. It means that we have free health care for the lemurs, which sort of feels like being Canadian. If I break my arm, I just go to the hospital. They fix me up for free. It's really great. So I'm really glad we get to cover this. And thank you so much for the lead-in question, guys. Now, time flies when you're having fun. We are nearing the end of the broadcast. I'm going to go back to our California crew for one more live question, and then we are going to wrap up from there with a big thank you and farewell from all of you. But Oxnard, come on in and take us away. Hey. Hello.
Have any of the babies been born in captivity?
Ooh.
Yeah, this is a good question. We're just double checking. We've definitely had babies born in captivity. There's lots of lemurs that do well in captivity. Not all, but a lot of them that are in captivity have been born here. Here at the zoo, I'm not sure which ones we have.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think back. So I've been at the zoo since 2017 here at the Toronto Zoo. And in my time being here, we haven't had any new babies. But I would guess that our original two, Lucy and Lily, came from another zoo. And I have to imagine that at least a few of our other lemurs in here have been offspring of them. Or a mated pair as well. So there's definitely been a few born here, but unfortunately, I'm not sure which ones specifically.
I can't believe you've only been there since 2017. I swear you've been doing broadcasts since before that. Holy. Well, Folks, I want to stress, if you ever are in the Toronto area, the Toronto Zoo, I visited at least 30 times in my life. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been, one of the best zoos in the world. So please do take that chance if you happen to be in the area. If you're not, head to a locally accredited zoo and do check out the amazing work of Planet Madagascar. All their things that they do to help save lemurs are really incredible. There's so much to explore and discover. Their website, social media, and beyond. And if you want a cool Christmas ornament or painting as well, there's some opportunities for that too. For you two, before we wrap up and bring in our kids, is there any final message you want to leave us for with the lemurs today?
Definitely. We encourage everyone to learn about lemurs today. It is World Lemur Day, and these kind of conservation days are great ways to inspire a love of nature and animals all around us. So if you didn't already love them, we hope today changed that for you. And yeah, I encourage everyone to go home and do some extra research about lemurs and different ways that we can help in their conservation.
Yeah, we often are worried about animals. So we see and hear that they aren't doing great. We can solve this problem. It's not something that's insurmountable. And we all working together can stop the extinction crises we see across the planet. And so remember that it's not dire. We have solutions. We have strategies. People in Madagascar are ready. They're already conserving them for us. And so we just have to help and support people doing that.
No better messages than those. Thank you two so much for such an incredible broadcast as always. And a big thank you from all our students on YouTube as well. What we do to wrap up every broadcast, as you well know, Mary Ellen, I'm going to bring in all our classes to say thank you and farewell, and then we will say goodbye from there. So, Miami, girls, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.